Yo, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode of Bring Your A Game. It's your boy, as always, Austin. Catch me on Twitter at Austin Snyder 90, TikTok at Austin Snyder 509, and Facebook, Austin Snyder, as you see on the screen there. And with always, I am with the most incredible tag team partners. We are a triple threat of just nasty, amazing sports knowledge and takes and energy. It's incredible, guys. It's incredible. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, I'll go. So I'm Amar Burton. You catch me at Amar_206 on Instagram and on Facebook. No, Instagram and Twitter. You can catch me on Facebook just under my regular name, Amar Burton. And as always, our third co-host would be.
Hi, my name does not start with an A, but I'm here anyways. I'm Dylan Holloway, Austin's older brother. You can catch me on Twitter at Dylan Reports, TikTok, Dill's TikTok, Facebook, Dylan Holloway, if you're into that sort of thing. What's going on, guys? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. We're just here for another episode. We're kind of like the podcasting version of the Kansas City Chiefs receivers because we're about to drop a great episode.
Or completely fail.
Or let the content hit us in the face and fail to.
Wah, wah, wah. That was the sound the entire Super Bowl, thinking that I was an idiot and chose the Kansas City Chiefs to win 34-30, even though I also predicted that they would have trouble with their offensive line and completely went against my gut. I mentioned Eric Fisher tearing his Achilles. I wrote a story before the game about how the offensive line was down several linemen and only the center was technically a starter going into that game, and how the Buccaneers, if they had any chance to win, would be through rushing the passer, and that's exactly what they did. But I'm still a moron, and I still picked the Kansas City Chiefs to win 34-30, and I'm eating some crow. What about you guys?
I had to mitigate my loss a little bit. Only $50, but yeah, I picked the Chiefs as well. I knew it was going to be a tight scoring game. That's what I knew. Apparently, they didn't know that. So instead, they just decided
what were they
not
thinking?
to show up. Yeah. So who would have ever predicted Patrick Mahomes not scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl? The guy's already a proven winner. He's shown up, shown who he could be, and then he just lays an egg in the biggest moment. So that was just crazy. But my thought was it could go either way. But for the Bucks to show up and just play an absolute perfect game on just about both sides of the field, yeah, hats off. That's crazy. That was incredible. One of the most boring Super Bowls I've ever watched in my life.
Well, I picked the Bucks to win, and I picked Tom Brady to win MVP, and I picked the Bucks to score 31 points. Now, I did pick Kansas City to score 27, so I'm not perfect, but whatever. But before we get into the football, the X's and O's and whatnot, I just want to know, how did y'all do the Super Bowl this year? Where did you watch the game? How'd you watch it? What'd you have to eat? What'd you do? How was your Sunday? So you can go, Dylan.
Well, mine was pretty laid back. I mean, as y'all know, maybe the people watching this particular episode don't know, I live in New Brunswick, New Jersey, going to school at Rutgers University in an apartment off campus. So I just watched it by myself. I don't know many people here. And with the pandemic, it's not like I'm going to the bar to watch a game or anything like that. So I just chilled at home with my puppy Bruce and ordered from Crispy Pizza down the street, which is one of the best pizza places here. Shouts out to them. Had a few ice cold Bud Lights. Hopefully we don't get sued for throwing their names out. That's some free advertisement. I'm sure they really need it. But I just chilled at home and watched it on my TV and just relaxed. What did you guys do?
I was working, man. I was sitting at work. It was all right though. We had a little bit of traffic that day. Day went by a little bit quicker, and then game came on, and we all just flopped down on the couch, ate some pizza, and watched the game. It was awesome.
Yeah. We went over to my dad's house. He's got the 75-inch TV, so we had to watch it on that. Yeah. But so my birthday was a few days after the Super Bowl. So they ended up turning it into this little surprise party. I mean, it was just a small group of people, very small. But it was a little surprise birthday party / Super Bowl get together. And I had suggested days before that because Kansas City was playing, we should have barbecue. And they took me up on that. So we had some barbecue, even though they threw me off, or they told me earlier we were going to do Subway sandwiches just to like throw me off track. And then I got there and they're like, oh, like barbecue. And I'm like, okay, awesome, cool. I don't need an excuse to eat barbecue, but KC's playing KC style barbecue, y'all know. But yeah, and it was my first Super Bowl, with the kids, first Super Bowl as a dad, watching the game with my kids and had my dad there. So it was kind of, that was cool. Like the, 3 generations all watching the big game. So
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, happy belated birthday, Amar. I also had a birthday recently. My birthday was the day before the Super Bowl. So Super Bowl birthday bros go on that one. Austin, you're not included.
So the game itself, it's been, analyzed back and forth every way, 6 ways to Sunday or whatever. But one of my big, not just everyone's big takeaway from the game was the Tampa Bay defense and just how dominant they were. Do you think like this was just another example of how defense just gets overlooked and underappreciated in the NFL today?
I think it definitely is because, all we talk about, it is an offensive league. It's a quarterback-driven league. These quarterbacks are getting huge contracts. The offense is scoring more points than ever, right? We're breaking records, all this other thing. But if you look at the last handful of Super Bowls, a lot of it was influenced by the defense, like not just this Super Bowl, but you had the Patriots completely shutting down the Rams and the offensive genius Sean McVay. On the top of my memory, you had the Broncos and the Panthers shutting down MVP Cam Newton. You had the Seahawks in 2013, or I think the Super Bowl was 2014, technically, shutting down the greatest offense of all time, the Denver Broncos, led by Peyton Manning, 43-8. Austin remembers that game. But we don't talk about defenses enough. I know we all love Patrick Mahomes. We all love Tom Brady. He's a GOAT. That's what every reporter, every journalist is talking about. That was the story, the GOAT passing the torch to the baby GOAT, right? Well, the defense said, I don't think so. They shut Patrick Mahomes out of the end zone. 9 points. The kicker was the only guy to score in the game for the Kansas City Chiefs. Can you believe that? This is supposed to be one of the greatest offenses ever. You got Kelsey, you got Tyreek Hill, you got Andy Reid, the offensive genius. Eric Bieniemy is the offensive coordinator. All these weapons, 9 points. I think the Buccaneers did awesome, and they showed you that defense still matters in the National Football League in the year 2021.
The reality is at the end of the day, no matter what sport, what century, what year, what age, whatever, offense will always put butts in the seat, but defense wins championships. And Dylan, you laid it out perfectly. All of those teams that you mentioned, even all the way back to the 2001 technically Super Bowl winner Ravens. We watched the Buccaneers before when they won their very first championship. They did it on the backs of their defense, right? And who was it? Brad Johnson was the quarterback. Correct me if I'm wrong. So my point is that like, yes, you like the deep balls, the 50 touchdowns a season. Hey, I'm all for it. Personally, they should allow steroids in baseball. I want to see as many home runs as possible. I'm that guy, right? But you have to give the respect to what it's due. And the fact of the matter is that defense is always going to be what separates the good teams from the legendary teams. And that's how you see, these championship Super Bowl winning. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers very well could end up being a dynasty. They're not going to lose a whole lot of pieces in free agency. They've got a fairly decent cap situation. All they need to do is just keep the guys that they've already got, add some pieces in the draft, and with Tom Brady, you're back in the Super Bowl again. Well, they could go back to back. They could potentially go to 3 Super Bowls if Tom Brady decides to stick around another year and keeps playing at this level. So that's great, and that's going to get you there. But keeping this defense together is what's going to win them every single time.
Yeah, you bring up a great point, Austin, because not to cut you off real quick, Amar, but I want to mention Tom Brady. You know, he had like 200 yards in the Super Bowl, right? Like he was the MVP because there's really no one else to give it to at that point. You can't give it to the whole defensive line. And he played great. No turnovers, 3 touchdowns, but 200 yards. Like it wasn't Tom Brady with the Patriots against the Eagles who had to throw for 500 yards just to keep up. Like
Right.
the defense put him in great positions to win.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I love games like this because like on the biggest stage, it forces everyone to remember the importance of defense and of the offensive line. And, with this game, I mean, everyone, they reference back to the first Kansas City Tampa Bay game this season when Kansas City won and, they put up all those points. And, Dylan, you were one of the only people I heard talking about like, KC's offensive line is not the same. They'd had injuries or whatever. And like, they were down a couple people and that had a huge impact on the game. We saw how important that was. And like, you can't underestimate or underrate how big the offensive line is and how big the defense is. And that was the story of this game. And a couple years ago when New England beat the Rams, I mean, same deal. Like everyone said, yeah, it wasn't like entertaining to a lot of people. I play defense, I play football. Like I kind of have a bias towards bias for defensive players. I like that game. It was like a defensive struggle and like, they were hitting and getting turnovers. And so, but that was another one where, going in, all they talked about was the offense and all they talked about was the quarterbacks and the skill position offensive players. And it's like everyone forgot like defense is going to decide this thing. So, this year's Super Bowl, the one a couple of years ago, like these, lower scoring defensive struggles or ones where like one defense is just totally dominant. Like I love it because it's just like, reminds people like, hey, like, it's not just pinball, it's not like it's not always about being 50 to 45 or like an offensive shootout. So, and yeah, like answer the general question. Yeah. Defense is definitely underappreciated. Across the board. I mean, NFL, college, football, like it just doesn't get talked about enough, which is understandable. They're not scoring the points. I mean, quarterback's the glamour position, they win all the MVPs and the Heismans and all that. But every now and then we get a game like we got on Sunday where defense kind of takes center stage and the quarterback still wins MVP, but at least we're talking about it now. So that helps.
Yeah, the thing is, offensive line just isn't sexy, like you said. Neither is defensive line. But football is still very much won in the trenches. If you look at a lot of the past 10 Super Bowls, the trenches had a huge impact on the game and who won it and who lost.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Even that Seahawks Super Bowl win, you could attribute that largely to that pass rush. I mean, in general, that was – I get that Malcolm Smith won the MVP or whatever for running a touchdown back. I used to laugh about that because it was like playing a game of Madden, like you have such a good game with your defense when you're playing Madden and you're so good at it. The MVP always goes to the defensive player that scored a touchdown because that was like the easiest way to like quantify, who had the best game or whatever. Like, well, he had a touchdown and nobody else did. So, anyways, but yeah, like a lot of even Peyton Manning will say that like the hardest or has said that the hardest part about that game was that it was a lot louder than they thought that it was going to be, right? Way louder. So as much as I hate using this term, but the 12 showed up, as well as I hate that. It it makes me grind my teeth just saying that. Anyways, as well as like the defensive line was like way quicker than he anticipated. So,
and I mean, they were just on Mahomes. And even with that, I mean, I can't say Mahomes played bad. I mean, he was running for his life the whole game.
That poor guy, 497 yards he scrambled before throwing the football. Are you kidding me? The dude was making throws inches off the ground, like holding his knee up with one arm and throwing the ball with the other, and just for his receivers to drop it. Like, dude, I feel for that guy. Oh, Patrick Mahomes, you poor man.
Mahomes obviously didn't have a good game statistically wise, and they didn't win, but they didn't lose because of Patrick Mahomes, right?
No, not even
There's
close.
A lot of casual football fans who will sit there on Twitter, on the internet, whatever, and say, well, Patrick Mahomes obviously doesn't have what it takes, brother. Look at, because they don't understand the game of football. You need an offensive line to block. You look at Brady's jersey when they showed him on the sidelines how clean his white jersey was, like he was in a Tide commercial.
Yeah,
it was clean as heck, man. Any quarterback in the National Football League, most quarterbacks could have success behind an offensive line that keeps you completely clean, right? Like it sounds simple and very elementary, but it's true.
Well, like we talked about that, goat and baby goat storyline going into the game. Like, do you think that Kansas City losing the way it did, like, does that hurt Mahomes's, early GOAT case or, best player in the league case, or is it at least going to make people kind of slow down on the Mahomes is the next GOAT or he's, in line to be the guy after Brady? Like, did this impact that at all?
Honestly, I wouldn't say that it didn't impact it at all, but here's the problem is that I think that it started a very, very, very real discussion as to, hey, is this guy someone who, because he does have the potential to end his career similarly to Tom Brady's, I would say. He's the closest, in my opinion, in terms of talent that I've ever seen personally that could end his career having that many Super Bowls, just with as good as he is. However, at the same time, he could also be the next Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Brett Favre. Where's our common theme here, boys? One Super Bowl win, and that's it.
The team sport, yeah.
Yeah, right. But I'm just saying it like that very well could be, and so the fact of the matter is that yes, there's going to be a little bit more of elevated expectations for him to win next year, or at least make an appearance again. He's getting Tyreek Hill back. He's getting Travis Kelce back. For the most part, I think that entire offensive line is coming back and healthy. I know that Fisher is definitely going to be back, and he's an incredible left tackle. They could have really used him in the Super Bowl. So for the most part, he's getting that same team back, minus a couple players to free agency, as it always goes, as the wheel turns. But so, yeah, the expectations go up a little bit. So I guess my point is it's not like it doesn't affect it at all, but I also don't think it's such a big deal that all of a sudden – we stop appreciating and admiring the things that this guy does.
I mean, do you think it's like how fans and media kind of approach the NBA where like losing in the Super Bowl is worse than if he'd lost earlier in the playoffs?
It all depends like who it is. Fans like to choose who they pick on. Like everybody picks on, like, it's funny because a lot of times you don't see like Russell Wilson getting blame for the 1 yard interception against Malcolm Butler, as painful it is for me to say these words out loud. Like, a lot of blame goes on Pete Carroll. But if that was a different quarterback or a different player, I'm sure they'd be all over him. You know what I mean?
If that was Jay Cutler throwing that pick.
Dude, they'd be
like,
if
that was Matt Hasselbeck. If you put Matt Hasselbeck in that situation and he's getting the heat.
Yeah,
he's not good.
Certain players get heat and other ones don't. I don't know why that is. I think it's just because some players, fans like to grind on, like obviously we all talk about LeBron. Like if LeBron does anything, they're the people who come out and defend him automatically and the people who come out and just hate on him automatically. There's very few in the middle LeBron fans like myself who can appreciate him, but I'm not going to pretend like he does no wrong in the game of basketball because it's silly. Like no athlete or person is perfect, obviously. And as for the Patrick Mahomes question on does this take down his automatic anointed GOAT ship, I sure hope it does, because I think it was getting a little bit out of control. I think we need to pump the brakes, back up the truck a little bit on this. I see people predicting that he's automatically going to go to 7 Super Bowls. Automatically. As if he's playing one-on-one basketball out there in a game to 11. That's not how it works. They're like, well, Tom Brady went to 10. You know how hard that is? He's the only one who's ever done that. There's a reason for that. There's, it's really hard to go that many Super Bowls because it's hard to keep a team together. It's hard to keep the coach there. It's hard to keep the offensive line there. The players, the defense. Look at the Seattle Seahawks. Like they looked like a surefire dynasty They lost the second Super Bowl. They lost some players to injury, like Cam Chancellor, Cliff Averill. Some other players wanted out. They haven't been back to the Super Bowl since. It's really, really tough. Just because New England's been able to do it doesn't mean it's just an automatic that Patrick Mahomes just goes to 7 Super Bowls and he wins 5 or something like that. It's not automatic.
Keep in mind, you don't keep Super Bowl teams like that together signing $500 million contracts.
Exactly. Doesn't he have the highest quarterback contract in the league right now?
Yeah, of all time.
Yeah. So, and they have a lot of high-priced guys. I think one of our buddies in our group chat for the show the other day dropped that link on just how big the salaries are, and some of them are astronomical. They're not going to be able to pay everybody. I think Frank Clark got paid the most this year.
$25 million.
Defensive end. And Frank Clark is great. I love Frank Clark, former Seahawk, right? But you're not going to be able to keep that guy forever with Patrick Mahomes getting $500 million, and Travis Kelce's got his money. Tyreek Hill's got his money. You got the offensive line you got to keep together, because you got to invest in them, obviously, because you saw what happened when they weren't good in the Super Bowl, right? Patrick Mahomes got beat up. It got to the point where I was like, okay, they're not going to win this game. And I was worried for the guy with how hard he was getting hit. He was getting demolished out there.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers were feasting on him, right? They're just blasting him. Maybe he won't show up in all the sack numbers because he's really good at getting rid of the ball, but he was getting hit really hard. And you get a $500 million investment. The game is out of reach. It's maybe you shouldn't put him drop back to pass and do all these double moves and long post routes when you got to score 21 points to tie the game, and it's not going to happen because there's 4 minutes left.
Right.
Now, who else was at that game watching Patrick Mahomes and probably thinking, I know exactly what he's going through right now, was Russell Wilson, who we mentioned earlier. What do you guys think of this situation that's going on with the Seahawks and Russell Wilson, and coming out and, talking about, he's getting hit too much, he's getting hit a lot. And, now we're talking about trading him, and it's just in the span of a few days, it went from, Russell Wilson is the guy in Seattle forever to now he might be gone soon. Just overall, just what's your take on this kind of whole situation? Because it's kind of a lot of layers to it.
So here's the reality is where there's smoke, there's fire. And this is a consistent yearly thing for probably the last 4 or 5 years of the what's going on with Russell Wilson in Seattle. Just a couple years ago, it was he's definitely going to the New York Giants to help further his wife's career, or it was the Las Vegas Raiders as they make their transition. I mean, just heard a lot of theories. Personally, I think it's ridiculous. I think Russell Wilson absolutely is justified in what he's saying. And for people immediately Russell Wilson's disrespectful comments to the Seahawks organization. I mean, guys, all he did, he said, hey, I would like some protection. The guy is literally on pace to shatter the record for the most time sacked. And we're not talking hit. The times that he's been hit is far more than that, right? But just for the most times for a recorded sack, it's 537 with Brett Favre, and Russell Wilson's at 398 going into year 10, and what will more than likely be a 20-year career. 15 plus for sure, right? So, yeah, absolutely. He wants some protection. Why wouldn't he? He's tired of getting hit. He's getting older. He understands the only way hey, Seattle, the only way I can help me help you, right? Right? Help me help you. Give me some protection so that I can stay healthy, so that I can stay fit, so that I can stay upright, and I can win football games for us, right? That's all he's asking. And yeah, maybe I think the comments that he has made that could potentially be subtle jabs that people are trying to read as him wanting out, I think they're just leverage moves. I think it's just him. I think it's Russell Wilson kind of stepping out of that shadow and using his voice to finally let the organization know that, like, I mean, come on, guys, let's, I'm here. You know what I mean? I'm elite. I am your franchise. I am the face of it. I'm your elite player. Like, hey, I let Pete Carroll kind of hoot and holler and chew his bubble gum, and I let him go in front of the cameras and say what he needed to say, and I just sat back and read my script and go Hawks and all that. You know what I mean? But I think he's finally said, I think he has done enough for this franchise to deserve the respect that he's asking for, I guess is my point.
The biggest difference between this and years past, like the New York Giants rumor and the Raiders rumor and Sierra, and they want to live in New York, is Russ never came out and said, yeah, that'd be awesome, right? Or I'd like that. Like, he never spoke publicly about it, whereas this, he's spoken publicly about it. Not only did he go on the Dan Patrick show and speak publicly about it, but he had his camp, whoever that is, his agent, I don't know, come out and say, I'm frustrated about being hit. I don't like this. I want us to get better upfront blocking. Now, I've gone back and forth on this in my head. On one hand, it's like the offensive line for the Seahawks is obviously not perfect, right? He takes a lot of hits. He's on, as Austin said, he's on pace to shatter the sack record, which is a record you don't want. But at the same time, he holds the ball longer than almost any other quarterback in the league. So not every sack is on the line, is on the offensive line. Only Deshaun Watson holds the ball longer than Russell Wilson does. And it's kind of like, I told Lamar this the other day, Russell Wilson, I always thought of him as kind of like the Barry Sanders of quarterbacks, right? Like, he's looking for the big play. He's scrambling around. He's trying to find it. He'll lose some, and you got to live with that. But he also gets some big ones, and you love it, right? When it happens, you got to live with the good, and you got to live with the bad. It's not the typical drop back, throw it real quick quarterback, right? He doesn't always throw it away right away. And Pro Football Focus had the offensive line ranked in 2020 as the 14th best offensive line in the league. Not, amazing, not the best, but not horrible. It's not, they're not ranked 30th or 28th.
Dude, they drafted a really, really good rookie in Damian Lewis that, he stepped up. He was on the all-rookie team. I mean, the guy, I think he even was like a Pro Bowl alternate or something. I don't know. Maybe
brings
not,
up my point. Like, people are saying, like, yeah, Russ is right. Russ is right. Like, Brandon Marshall went on the air and said, like, the Seahawks have only drafted one offensive lineman or signed one offensive lineman since Russ has been there, which is completely false and untrue. Maybe they haven't all worked out, but it's not like they've just ignored the offensive line the entire time he's been in Seattle. So that's not fair. And I don't know, like, he was asked a question on an interview show and he was honest, which I think is commendable, but I don't know if it's the best way to communicate to your team that we need to focus on offensive line, because it's not just him saying to Pete Carroll, you should draft offensive linemen, because now the offensive linemen who are real people in that locker room are going, wow, he thinks we suck, right? Like, even if he needed the compliment sandwich in there, they're going to think, oh man, our elite quarterback doesn't think we're very good, so some people might take that the wrong way. And I don't know where this is going to go. Like, as Austin said, where there's smoke, there's fire. I don't think it's completely like media created. Like, I see people saying that on the internet, like, this is just media creation. He came out and said this. The media did not invent this. This was not invented on somebody's word program on their computer, right? Russell Wilson came out and said this. So where there's smoke, there's fire. And I don't know if it means he gets traded. I know he can't get traded this year because the dead cap hit would just be astronomical to the Seahawks. It wouldn't make sense. But maybe it means he doesn't stay in Seattle for the rest of his career, which honestly shouldn't be surprising because that's honestly how football works these days, right? Some of my favorite players of all time didn't retire in Seattle. Matt Hasselbeck didn't retire in Seattle. Marshawn Lynch went to the Raiders, came back to Seattle. Who knows what he's going to do? Lynch does his own thing, right? But every player retires in your hometown. We've seen many Hall of Fame quarterbacks, Joe Namath, Johnny Unitas, Tom Brady now. Joe Montana, Brett Favre, they don't always retire where they got drafted, right? Eli Manning was kind of an unusual case. Once a Giant, always a Giant, right? And even Peyton Manning, he went to the Denver Broncos. So if Russell Wilson said, you know what, I want to try something else, I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't hold it against him. But at the same time, it's like you can't blame everything on this offensive line, right? So I don't think it's fair.
I'm hearing, and this might just be a loud minority of Seahawks fans, but I'm hearing a lot of people who they're just so appalled that he came out and said what he said, and that he's putting this out there to the media, to the public. And now it's like they want to get rid of Russell Wilson. They want him traded. Like they're done with him. And it makes me think back to earlier in his career when he was really coming into his own and he wasn't getting a lot of national attention. There was a lot of outcry from Seattle fans who were like, we've got the superstar QB. Why doesn't he get the national respect? Why doesn't he get, treated why doesn't he get treated like an elite QB? Why doesn't he get the endorsements and all that kind of stuff? And I'm like, you have that now. Like he is that elite franchise.
He's underrated. He's the most underrated. He's the best. He's the most underrated.
Yeah, and they wanted him to get that respect and that recognition, and he has it now. And he is a nationally famous elite superstar league, and they don't like it. And I'm like, but this is what you get when you have a legit superstar contract. You get a superstar quarterback. You get the huge contract. You get the celebrity wife. You get the, quote unquote, the distractions like commercials and talk shows and outside business ventures that during the season, you even hear people talking about, well, he needs to be focused more on football and not on doing commercials, or he needs to be focused more on the game and not on launching a fast line or whatever. But I'm like, well, that's what you get when you get one of those elite franchise QBs, and things are going to happen. Like he's going to do national interviews that are going to get blown out of proportion and that, people are going to overreact to, and he's going to want talent around him because that's what elite quarterbacks tend to get so they can win Super Bowls. And he's not going to be silent and be the company man about getting hit 400 times or however many it's been. So it's like, you wanted this superstar quarterback. You have a superstar quarterback, and now you want to get rid of him because he's gone too Hollywood and he's too cocky and he needs to stop talking so much and just shut up and play and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, if you want to do that, okay, fine. Trade Russell Wilson, send him to Jacksonville, and then you'll get back someone like Gardner Minshew at quarterback, and he's not going to be great, but he'll be quiet. So just decide what you want. I'm not saying that just because you have, a star quarterback, like there has to be drama, but there's a good chance there's going to be some drama, and there's going to be, overreactions to things, and there's going to be trade rumors, and there's going to be, and more than anything, there's going to be pressure to win and pressure to add talent. And that's what's happening right now. There's pressure to win. There's pressure to add talent because Russell wants to thrive. You know what I mean? He doesn't want to get sacked a million times a game. So, just for the Seahawks fans that are down on Russell right now and they don't like this and they don't like what he's doing, this is kind of what you asked for. So let's just deal with it.
Bro, I mentioned this last week. Seahawks Twitter is one of the worst places on the internet. Spoiled, entitled brats, man. They act like this is the Green Bay Packers, like they won 13 championships or whatever it is. This team did not see championship success until Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson came to town. Now, every time they have a bad game, it's because Pete Carroll can't coach. Everybody out coaches Pete Carroll. He's a moron suddenly. And Russell Wilson just isn't that good. He's a game manager. This person isn't that good. The offensive coordinator is not good. It was Brian Schottenheimer. Before that was Darrell Breville. The defensive coordinator, Ken Norton's not good. Blow up the whole team. Russell Wilson shouldn't be talking, as Amar said, like he's too cocky. It's because of Sierra. How many quarterbacks do we hear about their wives? Is it just because Sierra's famous? Like, do they say like who is like who's like
how often has Tom Brady been blamed for losing a game because Giselle had him, who is as equally as famous, if not more so, and is equally as rich, if not more so, than Tom Brady? And I've never once heard somebody say, he lost to Nick Foles and the Eagles in the Super Bowl because he was so distracted by Giselle. He's being a superstar.
He needs to get back in the lab and stop worrying about his marriage. Like, who are you to tell someone what they should be doing in their personal life? And I see this like when he's like on vacation with his
kids, dude. Like he literally has children with her.
Yeah, and like he's on vacation. People are like, "Oh, maybe if you worried about blah blah blah, we wouldn't be out of the playoffs already." It's like, dude, like, have you ever not had like a perfect day at your job? Like, shut up, man. Just shut up. Just all the Seahawks Twitter, just do me a favor and just all shut up.
You know, this happens though. I think it's just every fan base. This happened on Browns Twitter. Whenever
but it's Seahawks Twitter the most, Amar.
But like with Baker Mayfield, you know, whenever he had like a bad game, it was like, well, if he hadn't been filming Hulu commercials in the off season, then it's like because of the one day that he was filming that spot,
right.
You know, he wasn't studying film 24 hours a day, and that's why we're losing to the Colts right now.
Because of the one day that he took 90 minutes to film that ad that gets played over and over and over again, as if he just like every week has to go and film that same ad.
Yeah.
Just take this isn't a video game, guys. Like you don't just have a certain amount of action points.
And it's the same thing that I tell the Browns fans. I'm like, you wanted a good, recognizable quarterback. Yeah. And those guys get commercials, they get endorsements, they do talk shows, they're out here. And like, that's part of the deal. If you want an anonymous or like a quiet QB who's just not going to say nothing and who's not going to be out in the public and he can focus on football 24 hours a day, then he's probably not that good of a quarterback, because the good ones are, they're getting.
Yeah. And at the core of it, like, that's what the owners want. Like that, you know what I mean? That, like, those are the guys that generate the most money, the most ticket sales, the most jersey sales, everything else. They want those guys that, they made some controversy may follow, but no press or all press is good press, as they say.
Well, just go around real quick. Do you think that Russell Wilson should have some say in the front office, decision making and personnel like issues?
Absolutely.
In terms of like him making suggestions of like, hey, we should focus on this kind of position, or like, I'd really like to have this guy in free agency. Yes. Do I think he should be in the draft war room and be like, you need to draft this guy right now? Probably not.
No.
Yeah. I think I said it's kind of something similar about Deshaun Watson last week or a couple weeks ago. Like, I think you absolutely should keep your franchise player in the loop of like what you're doing and get his input, get his, talk to him, ask him like, hey, like, what do you think? Don't let him decide everything. But yeah, I think he should have some input. And I don't know, decision making power, but he should at least have his voice heard in the room. You know what I mean? So what do you think, Austin?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. And I think the people who I can't. It frustrates me, man. It really, really does, because the people that sit there, you get paid to do a job, so you just do your job. It kills me, dude, because like that's so unfair. That's so unfair. I can't tell you a job that I've ever had, right? Where I didn't, there are jobs that I didn't excel at, right? And you know what happened when I didn't excel them? They did not care what I had to say at all, period, right? But for the most part...
The other one, Austin, is whenever they talk about him wanting players, they're like, maybe you should give back some of that $85 million that you stole from the franchise so that they can sign some offensive linemen.
Right. So that's what killed me.
I see that all the time, dude.
That was a great Jim Ross.
Lost my train of thought.
I don't know why Jim Ross is on Facebook.
Okay. Another also quickly. Do you think that Russell Wilson is still going to be with the Seahawks in 3 years?
Yes. Maybe. I don't know. Oh, my point was that I was saying earlier is yes, Russell Wilson deserves it, but yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Depends how successful they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If they miss the playoffs the next 3 years,
go back to and win at least one more Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Honestly, I think that if Russell Wilson is going to retire as a Seahawk, I think Pete Carroll needs to go, to be perfectly honest. And here's the thing, like Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson, they've always had a good relationship, like it's the same thing with the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick thing.
Austin sounds like Seahawks Twitter right now, dude.
Oh my God, stop. Listen.
Fire Pete Carroll. Oh gosh.
No, stop. Listen, it's the same thing with like the Tom Brady Bill Belichick thing. People act like just every day they walk by each other like you Brady, like oh go shove it, Bill. Like no, these guys work together. They won championships together. Like it just. But every season the story came out like oh Bill Belichick and Tom Brady constantly at odds, not talking. Like, bro, the season's just got over. Like, they're taking their month off or whatever. But my point is that I do, however, think that they both decided like, hey, we're at a point where like we can't do this together anymore. And I think there's a good possibility that Russell is slowly getting to the point with Pete there. Pete still wants to run an old school, control the football, run the ball, control the clock, defense-oriented game. And I don't think Russell Wilson wants to do that, right? I think he understands the importance of it, but I think he wants the ability to throw the ball 30-plus times a game, 35-plus times a game. I think he wants to, and he loves being in a position to win these games. He just needs like, hey, bud, let's not invest in the run game. Let's invest in like guys who can protect in the pass game. And like let's invest in that part of the game instead. So I think eventually ownership and/or John Schneider, right, if he's there that long, have to come to a head where they're like, well, do we just continue with Pete's formula of winning? It brought us one Super Bowl a long time ago and maybe could potentially bring us another. Or do we move forward with Russell Wilson and find somebody, possibly Wolford, the guy that they hired from the Rams, that would be a little bit better suited to Russell's liking and how he wants the plays called?
Oh my goodness, we have just really found the jumping off point. Pete's getting fired, and Wolford is the new head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. The only Super Bowl winner in franchise history is getting canned because he goes to the playoffs every year. Austin is officially a member of Seahawks Twitter. I'm stamping it on your forehead, brother.
I'm just giving you the theory,
I kid. You're right. You bring up some good points. The thing is, though, it's like, can you blame Pete in some instances? Like he brought in the whole let Russ cook thing, and then Russ started burning the food halfway through the season, man. Whether it was him or the offensive coordinator or the line or whatever you want to call it, Pete went, too many interceptions, right? Pete has always said it's all about the ball. It's all about the ball. And then when he saw Russ throwing 4 interceptions in one game, he went, I don't think so. We're not letting him cook. We're getting a new sous chef. We're getting some TV dinners in here. We're stopping at McDonald's on the way home. We're doing whatever it takes.
And that's what I think is unfair. It's like Seahawks fans and media alike have told, they're like, did you guys forget that like 3-game stretch where he threw like 10 interceptions, right? Like, hey, guess what? The Seahawks were not running the football, right? They were letting Russ cook. And granted, some of those weren't always his fault.
Forcing it, dude. Against a too deep look, they're forcing deep passes.
Every time.
Not working. It was not working.
That's how the Cardinals beat them in primetime football. They ran cover two high safeties. So for those of you who maybe need a better understanding of football, all that is a basic coverage with both of your safeties just sitting up high covering the deep ball. That's it. Like that's all they do is just.
That just shows how predictable they got.
Right, and they ran it which is such almost 60% of the game. 60% of the snaps. That's all they ran, because they were forcing the ball so hard. So no, Pete is not wrong. And like, I don't necessarily disagree with what his thought process is on like, hey, we need to get back to control. But again, like I said, that's where you come to the impasse of like, hey, which direction is the franchise gonna go? Is it gonna follow literally the oldest coach in the NFL? Or is it going to follow the guy who, has probably another 10 more years of marketability at a high level in him? So
no, Pete's like 35 years old, dude. You see the way he acts? No, I think Austin's right, and I think it will all determine on what happens in the next 3 years if Russ is going to be there. If they lose a bunch of games, or if this he's not getting traded right now, right?
No.
But this offseason is a big offseason for the Seattle Seahawks. What they do is going to determine if Russ wants to stay there, I believe. If they just ignore what he said, because it already came out that they're unhappy with his comments, right?
Right.
Pete Carroll didn't come out and defend his guy and go, he's right. We do need to work on some things. They had management say, hey, we don't like that you're out there talking to the media. That's not a good sign, right? If they just ignore what he's saying and they draft some defensive tackle and put him at left guard and draft a linebacker and then a punter and then wide receiver and then 4 running backs and completely ignore what Russell Wilson said, maybe Russ is like, you know what? My voice isn't being heard. As Amar said, as Austin said, I'm out of here. I'm going to Jacksonville. No, he's not saying that.
and this is less than 1 week into the NFL offseason. So we're going to be hearing about this all
Brother, we got a long way to go.
Oh yeah, every move they make is going to get tied back to how's Russell feel about that, and how's this impact Russell? How come they didn't get a lineman? And so so we're in for a long offseason, especially for Seahawks fans. But I want to switch over to the NBA real quick. The Utah Jazz have the best record in the league, 21-5. They just beat the Milwaukee Bucks decisively today. Well, we're recording this on Friday, so just beat the Bucks decisively today. Bucks are supposed to be one of the best teams in the East, and Utah handled them. They're playing great right now. But do you think that the Jazz are a legit title contender or Western Conference Finals contender? Is this for real? Are they really one of the best teams in the league and a real threat?
I think they have a really good potential to be a Western Conference final contender. Maybe even a slightly better Denver Nuggets, if they were able to make it. Granted, it was a bubble year, but even still, if they were able to make it, I think that the Utah Jazz absolutely has that opportunity or ability to. But it's going to live and die with Donovan Mitchell at the end of the day. Gobert's going to give you your 20-10, 20-20, or 15-15 most nights. 1 or 2 blocks, maybe more on a good game. What you're going to get from him. But Mitchell has shown in the past in the playoffs that he can have some dynamic games, but when it really, really, really counts, he can't seem to shoulder that load, And granted, I know it's I'm not trying to put it all on his shoulders, but at the end of the day, he's the franchise player. And if he wants to take that next step, granted, I don't condone what Shaq said to him and how absolutely inappropriate that was. But I also don't totally disagree with Shaq. You know what I'm saying? I think there's a little bit of truth to that. And I have a hard time believing that Donovan Mitchell is that tier of player. Just personally, I would put him on the same level as a Chris Middleton, dude. You know what I mean? He's a great scorer and he can do some really, really good things when he needs to, but in the really big moments when he's supposed to be the guy to carry that franchise that we saw with Joe Jokic and Murray. Yeah, last season, they each kind of they went back and forth and then together pulling the teams out of these just ridiculous, down 20 points, down 30, just whatever. And they just kept coming back. I just have a hard time believing that Mitchell can do that he's that guy, that he's got that ferocity in the playoffs. And not that he doesn't want to win, but just some guys are winners and some guys aren't, and he just might not be a winner.
Okay, now Austin, I gotta clarify. Are you biased for the Utah Jazz? Because I know you guys a little bit of history with the franchise. So are you a Jazz? Are you a Jazz fan? Or okay.
No, I mean I'm a Supersonic fan for life, bro. And as a Supersonic fan, I would never be a Jazz fan. But yeah, I'm Karl Malone biased because I love me some Karl Malone. He was awesome, man.
Okay, all right, okay. Kind of going off what you said. I mean, yeah, I think that a lot of it will come down to Donovan Mitchell. I mean, Utah, they're there defensively. They rank top 3 in the league in some of the main defensive categories, points against, field goal percentage, stuff like that. yeah, the defense is there for them to be a contender. Because as we said earlier, in every sport, that's where it starts. They good enough coaching. They got some depth. They got some versatility. They can play with like different styles and play against different teams, and beat them. But yeah, it's in the league today. It just comes down to is your superstar good enough to be the guy to lead a championship team? And
Right.
has Donovan Mitchell taken that next step? I'm with you. I don't like how Shaq came at him. That whole if
You're just so awkward, dude.
Well, okay, if
Best part is
no,
you're not very
no,
good,
but you
bro.
know what it was? If Shaq had just owned what he was doing, I think, and I love Shaq, but
Yeah.
I think just going, I don't think he's good enough to make it to the next level, and then being like, oh, well, that was constructive criticism. And I'm like, that's not constructive criticism. You're not offering him any advice or this is what I think you need to do. You should improve on this, or, here's some actual, something that's going to help you. Just saying he's not good enough as oh, well, that might motivate him. You're assuming that Donovan Mitchell cares what you think of him. Right. And so, yeah, that whole thing with Shaq, that was just not the right way to go at him. If you really wanted to help him get better, or you really wanted to motivate him, do something more constructive than that. Don't just be like, oh, he's not good enough, and then he's going to take that and try to prove me wrong. But anyway, outside of that, Mitchell, I mean, he's playing next level this season. He's 24 points a game. He's his 3-point percentage is over 40 right now. He's throwing in 5 assists. He's playmaking. He just the other day against Boston, he put up 36 and 9 assists. I was just really impressed though. They beat Milwaukee, which is a good team today, and Mitchell didn't even have that good of a game. Right. It was 6 for 20 shooting the ball or something like that. But as we saw in last year's playoffs, he's got the ability to go off for 40 and 50 in postseason games. But he does get a little with the shot selection and
he gets Westbrooky, bro.
He gets
very Westbrooky, where you just he just takes out. You're like, dude, what are you doing? Why would you you just ran into the elbow with 3 guys standing there and then jacked up a shot? Why would you even think that was going in?
But I think it's the mindset of I gotta win this. I gotta be the guy to win this game.
Right.
As opposed to some guys who kind of play a little more under control in that scenario.
Hey, even Michael Jordan passed to Steve Kerr, right? Or was it James Paxton? Steve Kerr?
He passed, both of them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, both. Even Michael Jordan passed to both Steve Kerr and James Paxton.
And it is something that like LeBron James is criticized for, passing the ball too much in that scenario. But then someone like Russell Westbrook, he probably doesn't pass it enough. So Mitchell, he just got to find that, that middle ground where he can take over, but then also recognize if okay, I missed my last 3-4 shots, let's not keep forcing it. And they got the talent around him to capitalize. So I think they are, I wouldn't say championship contender right now. I'd say I could see them making the Western Finals, but I wouldn't see them beating the Lakers or the Clippers in a playoff series, with a finals shot, with a finals trip on the line. So I don't know. What do you think, Dill?
I think Donovan Mitchell is a superstar in this league. And I think the Utah Jazz are absolutely a contender to go to the NBA Finals. I'm not saying they will go to the NBA Finals. I'm not saying they will beat the Lakers, because I think that is obviously still the team to beat in the Western Conference Final. Until the Clippers show me the playoff peak and show up, I'm not putting them on that level, And Donovan Mitchell, he's a really good player, but he's not the only player on that team, right? They have other players, like Austin said, they got a defensive mastermind and Rudy Gobert. They got Bogdanovich, who didn't even play last year in the playoffs. He's scoring 16 points per game. They got Jordan Clarkson, right? They've got players around Donovan Mitchell, and the team is playing really well. I feel like we're trying to nitpick and find reasons we don't like a 21-5 team. They have the best record in the NBA right now. So, and Donovan Mitchell, he's not a perfect player by no means, you're right, he went 6 for 20 tonight, but the guy has shown superstar qualities in the playoffs, dropping 40 points, dropping 50 points. And that was because he had to. It wasn't like he was just ball hogging out there, right? The rest of the team was not showing up, and he said, "We are winning this game." Right? He had that kind of Mamba attitude, if you will. We are not losing this game. That's what you want to see. And as far as the Shaq thing, that to me was just hilarious because of how awkward it was. Just Shaq going, "Hey, Mitchell, I don't think you got what it takes." And Mitchell just goes, "All right." And then it just ends. And then like the next day, Mitchell has a good game and Shaq goes, "Yeah, that's because of me. It's because of what I said." Even though he's been having these great games for years now, Shaq took all credit now for everything he's ever going to do. If they win the NBA Finals, Shaq will take credit. And I love Shaquille O'Neal. That's my favorite sports show on television is Inside the NBA, TNT, Charles, Shaq, Kenny, the Jet, and Ernie, of course. Shouts out to them. But yeah, it's absolutely just goofy to me, right? I couldn't even be mad at it because of how completely ridiculous it came off. It seemed like comedy. Like I'd have to watch that full episode to see how the other guys reacted just because it seemed so ridiculous. But yeah, I think the Jazz absolutely have a shot to get to the finals this year.
You know what though? If the way the standings are right now, the Jazz in the first round would play Golden State. Would you confidently pick them to beat Steph Curry and Golden State in a playoff series, just knowing the experience that Curry's had and he's been there? Steph Curry, Steve Kerr, that group. I mean, missing Klay Thompson, but and Draymond, throwing him in there. Like, I'm not even sure if the Jazz would definitely beat Golden State in a playoff series.
I don't know if I confidently pick after seeing the Buccaneers absolutely eviscerate the Chiefs. I don't know if I'm going to confidently pick any playoff game ever again in my life, to be honest with you. That was a beatdown of epic proportions, but not to change the subject. I wouldn't say that it's a lock, brother, like Kramer, like it's a lock, Jerry. It's a lock. I wouldn't say that or anything. But I think they'd have a pretty good chance because outside of Steph Curry, where's the scoring going to come from, right? You got Donovan Mitchell, you've got Jordan Clarkson, you got Bogdanovich, you got Joe Ingles, who I forgot to talk about, a great role player, right? Like the Warriors don't have that yet. I love the Warriors. They're my favorite team in the NBA. Klay Thompson's my favorite player. Like, I don't know if they're still going to make the playoffs or not, right? They're fighting, though. They're scratching and clawing, and I love watching them. But I wouldn't – if I had to, if you had, the gun to my head, who would win, I'd probably pick the Jazz in that scenario.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to get to the winners and losers segment. Winners and losers of the past week, or at least since the last time we talked to y'all. So let's go with Austin. Who's your winner and loser for the week?
So my winner is it's the safe pick. I'm going Trevor Lawrence as my winner this week. He had a great pro day, as they say, which I don't put a whole ton of stock into those staged auditions.
Where they just
guy
throwing shorts or whatever.
The guy throwing it air, and they're like, "Holy cow! Look how he throws a football! Are you kidding me?"
I know. I love how they reacted Trevor Lawrence's pro day. Like nobody knew he was good.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I didn't see any of this on film in games over the last 3 years.
And I was listening to the radio on my way to work this morning, and they brought up a good point. And one of those is man, a pro day really is what the best thing that can happen is that you do what you're supposed to do, and then they applaud you for a week, and then nobody talks about it ever again, right? However, on the flip side of that, if you do not do well, all of a sudden you're Matt Leinart going from a surefire number 1 overall pick to sitting in the green room last, right? You're sitting there. You put yourself in a really, really bad position. So, but he's my winner of the week. He did what he was supposed to do. He showed up. He had said, "Hey guys, yep, I am really good. So whether you take me number 1 overall or you trade me to somebody else who takes me number 1 overall, I'm going to set this league on fire." So,
I'm surprised he even did it, honestly, because we've seen a lot of instances where the quarterbacks that were the surefire, what do you have to gain in that?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the point. That's the point. Your risk reward. That's how I always look at football. Whether they should go for it or not, whatever. Your risk reward of doing a pro day, your reward is that you do exactly as you are supposed to do, and then we say, "Man, yep, Totally right. You're really good at football,
Is
just
he
like
officially
we.
declared?
Yeah,
I don't remember seeing him declare. I
yeah,
assume
yeah.
he
He
was.
wouldn't be at a
I
pro day
must have missed
otherwise.
it.
Yeah. No,
But yeah, you do like, hey, great job. Did exactly what you were supposed to do. And then we never talk about it ever again. Like, hey guys, do you remember what happened at Tom Brady's pro day? Could anybody recall? Exactly. Nobody cares. But your risk is that you don't do well, and then everybody's like, "Oh crap, this guy has absolutely got bust written all over him." So yeah, and then you lose your number one overall pick. You lose. I mean, all of it. It could all go bad. Anyways, my loser of the week is man, there was a lot of losers across all sports this week. But I gotta say, my biggest loser of the week is Urban Meyer. He goes out and he hires Chris Doyle, an absolute disgrace based off of racist remarks and other bullying and everything else. I think I almost want to say Amar and I had kind of touched on this subject like many episodes ago. I know we're getting into like episode, I think 13 or something here, over the span of however, 6 months or whatever. But in one of our very first episodes, we kind of touched on like one of the questions Amar asked was about like styles of coaching, and like what's an acceptable, you remember that, Amar?
yeah,
What's an
the old school
right.
bullying, yelling style, and how that just
Exactly.
doesn't work.
And so anybody who may have watched that is watching this, no, I don't like that is so absolutely unacceptable to me. I like so not okay. You don't sit there and you don't bully your players. You don't sit there and talk down to them. You don't call them racist remarks. You don't whatever. And even I've even heard people justify it with the racist remarks isn't confirmed, whatever. Okay, even if that isn't the case, just the treating people like that is not okay. So for Urban Meyer to sit there in front of the world and say, "Yep, I vetted this guy. Yep, this guy I vetted him. He's absolutely going to be a great fit." And then once the world goes, "Wait a minute, didn't we tie this guy up like a year or so ago for some stupid stuff he was doing?" And then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, yeah, I don't think this is going to be a good fit," and he resigns. So it's absolutely ridiculous. And Urban Meyer, you are the loser of the week for such a boneheaded decision. Not a good start to your NFL career, buddy. Come
That
on.
was the Jacksonville Jaguars edition of winners and losers.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, they were both winners and losers of the week.
I'll just my winner this week. Just Tom Brady. I mean,
Hot take.
Super hot take. I know he hasn't been talked about a lot this week. I wanted to give him some spotlight because he's just really flown under the radar.
Russell Wilson trade rumors,
like
Trevor Lawrence avocado tequila, brother.
Right. And when are we going to talk about
a lot of news?
Yeah, when are we going to talk about this Tom Brady guy? No,
Tom Brady underrated.
But no, I mean, 7 Super Bowl, another MVP. I mean, the talk all week is, is he the GOAT? Do you solidify it? If not the football GOAT, but the, overall sports GOAT. So can't say anything, but he won this week, even if you hate him, he won. He's the winner of the week. Loser of the week is I don't know if I should say college basketball fans or just the college basketball insider tournament, aka the CIT, aka the fourth from the top tournament during March Madness. Some people don't even know it exists. But anyway, that tournament, they just announced that it's going to be canceled this year because of COVID. So that's one of our, COVID casualties of the 2021 sports calendar. It's like, so the last time we had a tournament was 2019. I actually filled out brackets for every tournament. I did like the main, like the big dance. I did the NIT, I did the CBI, and I did the CIT. sometimes not knowing anything about the teams involved, but I did it because
And like a beautiful mind, he got every single one
I
perfect.
did. I did. No, I had them like up on the wall, like all my brackets, and then I was doing my color coding. Like, okay, did I
He
get
was
it?
like Russell Wilson or Russell Crowe pacing back and forth. I got it. He's got it. It's got to be somewhere. That's the answer. It's got to be somewhere in here.
So for the diehard college basketball fan, that's a loss. I mean, you're missing the postseason tournament. For the tournament itself, obviously a loss because it's not going to happen this year. So rest in peace for a year, CIT tournament. And Dylan, what you got this week?
I'm sorry, Zoom cut out a little bit there. But yeah, my winner of the week is going to be Justin James JJ Watt because he gets to walk away hands clean of the Houston Texans. He went, you know what, guys? I'm not really having fun here anymore. I think I'd like to go play for a team. And they went, you know what, JJ, you got it. Go ahead and clock out early, buddy. Take off. Go do what you got to do. Deshaun Watson, no, you got to stay here. You're here with us forever.
Yeah, well, since we let JJ go, you got to cover his shift. So
JJ Watt, though, nope, you can go on and leave. And he gets to sign with any team he wants now. A lot of people think he might sign with the Steelers because of his brothers, I don't know, though. I think he might look for a title contender. I might think he might be hungry for a championship. Where do you guys think JJ Watt is going to land?
I think the Bucks could be a good possibility, honestly. Yeah, I think the Bucks could be a very real and a very good situation for him for a couple of reasons. I mean, let's be honest, J.J. Watt is past his prime. He's dealt with some injury issues. However, still a dynamic player. He's not even close to what he once was. So he needs to find a situation where he's not having to play 95% of the defensive snaps, Granted, I'm not saying, bring the guy in just on third downs or whatever, but, a situation like in Tampa Bay where he's got some really solid, good elite talent around him, you rotate that guy in and keep in mind, J.J. Watt can play any part of the defensive line. Defensive tackle, deep right end, left end, you can put him anywhere. So you can almost, that's the one thing that I think Pete Carroll, God, I know we bring this team up enough, but Pete Carroll with Michael Bennett and what he did with him and totally revitalized his career. Why? Because, dude, he brought the guy in. He let him play he let him utilize his talent at every different position on the line. And he didn't have to play 95% of the defensive snaps. So he wasn't always gassed. And I'm sure J.J. Watt would like to maybe rest up a little bit between plays a little more often now than when he was 25 years old. So, yeah, I think the Bucks give him that best shot. Or the Green Bay Packers, I think, is an underdog that people aren't really talking about. I think that could be a really real possibility. Him with Aaron Rodgers there, who's to say?
What if he goes to the Rams?
Then my team will be in.
Russell Wilson would immediately come out the next day and demand a trade.
Demand a trade to another team. Yeah.
Hey, I'll waive my no trade clause to whomever, the Jets, the Jaguars, the Raiders. It doesn't matter. Just get me the hell out of this division.
Yeah, it's like it's going to be like the Family Guy where Russ just goes like, "I'm done, I'm out," like bye. Yeah. No, I don't know. I mean, I've heard the Steelers a lot, just because his brothers play there, and I mean they're good. They have a chance to win. I'm assuming he's going to look for a best chance to win a Super Bowl, which that puts Tampa Bay in the mix, that puts Kansas City in the mix. I mean, but yeah, I don't know. Like I'd be very interested to see if he would go to the Rams and you have Aaron Donald and JJ Watt on the same line. Like that would be kind of insane. So
I'd like to see him with the Tennessee Titans. Back with back with Clowney on the line there under Mike Vrabel.
Dude, I was actually going to mention them earlier.
Already nasty that's a defense.
Yep.
Plus, then he gets to play against the Houston Texans 2 times every year. So I think that would be a fun spot to see JJ Watt. I'm not saying he will go there. I think he might end up with the Steelers. I think, maybe family ties will prevail, but I'd love to see him with the Titans. My loser of the week, and I went back and forth on this, thinking of who I was going to do as my loser of the week. Do you guys know the name Mike Remmers?
No.
Remmers, because he just played in the Super Bowl.
Oh.
Kansas City Chiefs offensive lineman. That was his second Super Bowl. You want to know what his first Super Bowl was? Playing for the Carolina Panthers against Von Miller.
No.
This poor guy is now I just something I normally do. I want to go ahead and read you the input here on his Wikipedia page. What it actually says officially for Mike Remmers. He played in Super Bowls 50 and 55, where he cost both the Carolina Panthers and Kansas City Chiefs their chance at a Lombardi trophy because of his inability to block Von Miller and Jason Pierre-Paul. This is how this guy is going to go down in history and be known for his football career as the guy who lost the game for Patrick Mahomes and Cam Newton in his MVP year. And even if it's not all his fault, I got to give him the L this week as my loser of the week. I'm sorry, Mike Remmers. I'm sure you're a nice guy.
Man. And we're back to the offensive line. That's what we talked about at the top of the show.
That's how we get butts in the seats for bringing your game. We talk a lot of offensive line. Pulling guards, brother. Pulling guards.
Absolutely. Hey, that's how we get down, bud.
All right. I think we've been here long enough. So, Austin, you want to take us out?
Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Bring Your A Game. Make sure, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, drop a comment, join the conversation, hit that little bell so you can get notified regularly. And as always, when you come to this show, you must bring your A game. Peace.